حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فإنه من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعص الله ورسوله فلا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. أما بعد فأوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله تعالى كما قال جل وعلا في كتابه المجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. My honored brothers and sisters, after beginning with the praise and the thanks of Allah, the Exalted, the Almighty, and I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah alone, with no partners, no equals, and no associates. And I bear witness that the last Prophet Mohamed, peace and blessings be upon him, is the last of his prophets and the seal of his message. My brothers and sisters, we have been discussing in a series of khutab about the story narrated by the mother of the believers, Aisha bint Abi Bakr, radiallahu anha, to our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The story of 11 homes, most ulama say in the times of Jahiliyyah, where these women sat together and spoke about their homes, and these homes give us a snapshot of the challenges and the issues and the ups and downs of life until the 11th home. The Prophet ﷺ likens his treatment of Aisha radiallahu anha to this 11th home that we're about to come to. And we're in the 9th and 10th home. عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت جلس 11 امرأة فتعاهدن وتعاقدن ألا يكتمن من أخبار أزواجهن شيئا. That on the authority of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, who said that there are 11 women that sat and took a covenant and a promise together to not hide anything of the truth and the reality of their homes. We said that this sitting in its essence is not permitted Islamically because it's a sitting of namima and backbiting. However, this was like a folk story or a report among the Arabs, and so we learned from the story that the Arabs would share. And continuing later in the hadith, at the 9th house, قالت التاسعة زوجي رفيع العماد طويل النجاد عظيم الرماد قريب البيت من الناد. The 9th woman praises her husband. She says, my husband is a tall, broad man. Remember, we spoke about another type of tallness that was criticized, which was al-ashanna. But this is a positive, this is a praise, praising his strength and his height. زوجي رفيع العماد طويل النجاد. And nijad is the sheath in which a sword is placed. And remember the time context, obviously, of the story, more than 1400 years ago. And so this is a very eloquent way of praising his strength and his courage. Because if the sheath meaning the place where the sword is put in for storage, that is held around the waist, if that is long and heavy, then what does the sword itself look like? It is also long and heavy and takes great strength to carry. So contextualized in that time of history, this is praising the strength and the courage of her husband. Okay? And remember, we spoke about how we should balance that, inshallah, to teach our children, boys and girls, sports and healthy activity and good eating is part of Islam, without incorporating our unhealthy societal, views and unhealthy attitudes about the body. This is the balance of Islam, to seek good health and seek strength. The Prophet ﷺ says that the strong believer is better than the weak believer. But there is good in both. But the Prophet ﷺ praised this strength when it is used appropriately with wisdom. طويل النجاد عظيم الرماد قريب البيت من النار. These are all very eloquent praises. She says that at his door there are heaps of ashes. You know, the ashes are what is left after a fire is lit and the fuel is burned out. Think wood or charcoal in our times. And you have these ashes left. So if a person has a lot of ashes, that means that what created the ashes is larger. That he has this large fire roaring and going all the time, right? That created these ashes. And if this fire is going, then that means that they're always cooking and preparing food. And this is an eloquent praise of our main focus today, which is al-karam, generosity. And it is from the highest and most praised of our Islamic characteristics and morals and values. So she says he has all of these ashes left from this fire, and his house is close to a Ned. A Ned is like the gathering place of people. Okay? Remember, this is before modern times and convenience stores, so there would be places, not the marketplace, not the souk where people buy and sell, but the places where people come and eat and discuss and share news and make decisions, the city center, if you will. So if people meet and eat and hang out, if you will, then they're going to get hungry and thirsty and have needs. So the houses that are nearby are the ones where if somebody wants to eat, if somebody wants some water, they will come. So this is a praise of this household, that this household is always a house that is open for the guests. So she praises the strength, the courage, and especially the generosity of her husband and therefore of her home. That this is, alhamdulillah, a beautiful characteristic of this home. And from the dua that is mentioned for people, and a dua that we should make for our homes, is that our homes have open doors where the righteous come often. And those that are fasting break their fast. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His name is mentioned and as-salah is established. It is a great honor for an individual, for a couple, for a family, and for their home to be known that this is a home of generosity, that this is a home of giving, that this is a home when a person comes, they are given with plenty and they are given with honor. And this is perhaps the main takeaway of this 9th household, this generosity that is praised in this home. And it's closely linked to the 10th household, so let us also mention her. قالت العاشرة زوجي مالك وما مالك خير من ذلك له إبل كثيرات المبارك قليلات المسارح إذا سمعن صوت المزهر أيقن أنهن هوالك. So remember, the 10th woman has heard all of these stories, praise and criticism and anger and frustration and happiness, and she's near the end of the gathering. She is the last one. So she mentions this word of praise that is really incredible. As if she is saying, okay, you heard all about this, but let me tell you about my husband, Malik. And how can I tell you about Malik? Malik is better than Malik, right? With Malik is better than anyone you could mention, right? And mashallah, this short sentence and this eloquent sentence teaches us something as husbands and wives, as sons and daughters, that we mentioned a long time ago in one of the very early households that was criticized, which is the Islamic characteristic of ar-rida, of contentment. That surely Malik seems like a very special person, but part of what makes him special is the eye of the one that is looking at him, which is a wife that is content, alhamdulillah, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted them in that household. And a man was once asked, would you rather have riches or fame? And imagine, my brothers and sisters, if someone asked you this, would you rather be rich or famous? And the man replied, I'd rather have contentment. Rida. Because fame, we don't control it. And to seek it is against our religion. Because how many people has fame destroyed, and how do we know that we could handle it? And riches, how many people have been destroyed by riches? And how many people have sought and went after money and not acquired it? But ar-rida can be granted to anyone by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who sincerely asks for it. Ar-rida can be attained whether you have a lot of money or little, whether you are well known amongst people or the secret is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this woman, yes, she praises her husband, and surely her husband has some special qualities, and yet also she teaches us ar-rida, and then she reminds us also of this cover. She says that he has many camels, right? And she says kathiratul mabarid qalilatul masarih. You know, the only brothers and sisters that understand this are our gardeners, or really our brothers and sisters who are in farming, or at least close to agriculture, right? So the animals that are out and, grazing in the fields frequently, and they move a lot, and even if you will, venison, deer, right? Muscular animals, their meat is tough. What gives meat that special flavor and makes it very, soft and enjoyable is the presence of some fat on the animal, so not moving too much. That's why muscular animals have tough meat. So this is also a very eloquent praise. She says that these camels, her husband, the owner of this household, they're not concerned that these camels are out grazing and so on. They stay at home a lot. Why? Because these camels are there especially for guests. So, and this, mirrors the great story of the examples of all generous people who are the prophets alayhi salam, and one of them, of course, Abu al-Anbiya, Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Khalil of Rahman, who the story of his generosity is also mentioned in the Quran, and the Quran mentions that he came with ajlun samin, right? That a fat and prized animal, and this is from also honoring the guests. And she continued, إِذَا سَمِعْنَا صَوْتَ الْمِزْهَرِ أَيْقَنَّ أَنَّهُنَّ هَوَالِ. This is a description of when a guest comes to the house. This family would have almost a procession and a special welcome. And there would be some noises, some instrument, and this welcoming of these guests. So she mentions by way of descriptions that when the camels would hear this, they know that a camel will be slaughtered as, honoring these guests. So very eloquent praise again of al-karam, or generosity. The ulama have had many definitions and descriptions of al-karam, but among them, infaq al-mal al-kathir bisuhula, right? So giving a lot of money, giving with ease. There are people that give and the hand is shuddering
And there's that frustration because all of us struggle against this human nature of loving to acquire, of loving to have. So the believer that is blessed with al-karam, when they give, it's easy. They have trained themselves to be generous, so there isn't as much of a struggle and frustration. And so they give with this ease, بسهولة من النفس في الأمور الجليلة القدر والكثيرة النفع. That they give in matters that of great importance and wide benefit. And this is from the intelligence of the believer. That even as they give, they don't give haphazardly. That's not to say that one cannot give widely and not give to, but even in their giving, there is intelligence and thought. And so some of the ulama mentioned that they give in matters of great benefit and of great importance, and of wide benefit. So even in their giving, there is that study, that understanding, how can I bring more and more benefit to people? And it is enough of a honor and enough of a distinction that a person search for al-karam as a believer. It is sufficient to say that al-karam is from the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has mentioned and assigned to Himself. And it is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that comes in Asma'illah al-Husna, in His highest, most perfect names. And it is an attribute and a name that has been mentioned in Allah's respect in Al-Quran Al-Kareem. And so Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in Surah Al-Infitar, يَا أَيُّهَا الْإِنسَانُ مَا غَرَّكَ بِرَبِّكَ الْكَرِيمِ. Oh, human being, what has deluded you? What has deceived you concerning your Lord Al-Kareem, most generous? So He mentions His attributes subhanahu wa ta'ala of this karam as among the reasons that a person should know and worship Allah Azza wa Jal and should appreciate His favor. And of course, from the first ayat, and among the first ayat revealed to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the ayat in Surah Al-Alaq, اقرأ وَرَبُّكَ الْأَكْرَمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded His Prophet, read and recite, and your Lord is Al-Akram. Your Lord is the most generous, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who is incomparable in His manifestation and His attribute of Al-Karam. And every Kareem, every human being who has some attribute of generosity, who this generosity brings happiness to people, is nothing but an incomparably small and unmentionable example of the vastness of the karam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My brothers and sisters, al-karam, the Arab would say that al-karam was-saqa yughatti kull 'ayb. That the person who is generous and open-handed, if a person has this Islamic characteristic, it can shield every flaw. Because we, my brothers and sisters, all of us, we have our challenges. We have our deficiencies. One of us is more prone to be a little angry. One of us, sometimes a sharp word comes off. One of us struggles with patience. And yet the person who is generous wins the hearts of people. The person that is generous and their hand is always open, always giving, this person, people overlook their flaws and love to be around them. So it is from the attributes that Islam emphasized, and from the attributes that our Prophet ﷺ mentioned in many hadith. To cover some of them inshallah in the second khutbah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. My brothers and sisters, we've been speaking about the 9th and 10th homes of the famous hadith of Zar, and homes that emphasize for us especially the Islamic characteristic of al-karam and generosity. The opposite of al-karam is al-bukhl, being stingy and tight-fisted and miserly in English, not wanting to give, wanting to hoard and not caring for others. And my brothers and sisters, this attribute was criticized in the Holy Quran, was criticized by our Prophet ﷺ, and has such a weight on people that there are proverbs and stories that are mentioned from thousands of years ago. That imagine a person in a home that withheld, that was miserly. It left such an impression on people that it's conveyed to us in reports until now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Hadid, لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم والله لا يحب كل مختال فخور الذين يبخلون ويأمرون الناس بالبخل ومن يتولى فإن الله هو الغني الحميد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us that we not be over prideful and over excited about what we acquire, nor that we get over depressed about what we miss and what we don't acquire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love self-deluded and boastful people. Then He describes them those that are stingy and command others to be stingy. And elsewhere in the Holy Quran, this has been criticized as well. And the Prophet ﷺ used to actually seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection from this attribute. So say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-ajzi wal-kasal wal-jubni wal-bukhl wa ghalabat al-dayni wa qahr al-rijal. Beautiful dua. We should memorize it. Makedua.com is one place you can find it, or Hisn al-Muslim. But among the attributes that he sought Allah's protection from was this stinginess, this tight-fistedness, not wanting to give people. So how can we learn and train ourselves to give? Giving is learned by that, by training. Obviously asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that tawfiq. But al-karam is one of the things that we should especially focus on with our children. Because the person that learns to give when they're young, that giving comes easily and naturally. And the person that is difficult to give, then they struggle as an adult, right? And they keep having to struggle to attain this Islamic characteristic. SubhanAllah, from the stories that we heard from an Imam, was that the person that he learned to serve tea from was his first Quran teacher. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. And he would share the story about how when they were in the Quran halaqah and someone would call for the kitchen for one of the students, and he would be carrying the tray. The Quran teacher would pause the lesson and in front of the students, coach this person, no, hold the tray like this. Don't look at the teacup, but look straight and the tea will not wobble. And imagine this occurring in this simple story. Why? So that all of these young students learn these manners of giving and of honoring the guest, which is just one of the doors of generosity and giving that brings people's love. Among also the important ways of learning to give is to not just give money, not just honor the guest, but to give of ourselves. This is from the special opportunities that we have to find as families. To connect with the local masajid, connect with local organizations, non-profits, NGOs that are doing good work, and take our children. Yes, one time we put some dollars in their hand and we have them put it in the box. This is wonderful. But then to go out and find an opportunity to feed people with their own hands. To actually be in a place to help, for example, build a home. Some of our brothers and sisters work with Habitat for Humanity and actually get out and sweat and put in that effort, any of these things that have that physical effort, inshallah, to give of time and give of people, of ourselves. This was from the noble chapters of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, who was not only the most generous of all people, who was not only the most open of all doors, but he was also the first to solve people's problems. MashaAllah, we find some brothers and sisters among our community. It seems, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless them and us all with Jannah, it seems that the door that they will seek is this door with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you see, they're the first person. Somebody needs help moving, somebody has a problem with their child, somebody has an issue, you always find these brothers and sisters often nameless. But they're the first people, by the time you go, you see they've already come and gone and solved the problem. This is from the great, great, honorable ways to have al-karam, to help people with their issues and their everyday problems that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solves, tests us all with. And finally, my brothers and sisters, a special way that we can have al-karam, and a way that you may have passed by in the Quran many times, and like me, you may have not noticed it for many years. But one of the great Islamic ways to give and to be generous is the way that we have been discussing in this hadith, to be generous with our spouses and family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يسألونك ماذا ينفقون قل ما أنفقتم من خير فللوالدين والأقربين إلى آخر الآية. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, they ask you what shall they give, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says first what you have given. He mentions first the parents and the next of kin, as if this ayah is teaching us that the people most deserving of this giving and generosity, our kin and our family, they take priority even over all of the others who are also deserving of our good and giving. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us generous hearts and generous hands. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our homes to be homes in which as-salah is established and in which Allah's name is mentioned and remembered. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our doors, to be always open doors for guests and for those in need. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our homes homes where the fasting break their fast and where the righteous gather and frequent. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us generosity with our money, and generosity with our time, and generosity with our families, to make us, inshallah, from those who are among al-Qurama and among those who emulate our prophets in generosity. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate the hardship of all those suffering across the world. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من الهم والحزن ونعوذ بك من العجز والكسل ونعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم آمين آمين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وآخر دعوانا
الله أكبر الله أكبر.